pleasure to be here. I actually arrived a few days earlier, so I had a chance to... Can I speak without the microphone? Is it okay? Can you guys hear me well? I'll try to speak especially loud. So I kind of really enjoyed my time in Tokyo so far. I've never been before. Great people, great food, great outdoors. I heard you had a winter as well, but you can't say from now. So thanks for a very kind introduction. I must admit it's really easy to write popular pages, write about Facebook and big data and subjects of this kind. Journalists very much like it, so I guess it's much easier to attract public attention when you do not use any equations. Actually, just have some screenshots from Facebook. But actually, I do use some equations. Though Ken asked me to promise, I had to promise before I came here that I will not show you any equations. So even his presentation now, I feel that it's a bit of cheating because he has all the smart equations and I don't have any here. So I'm really sorry. Really sorry for that. So what I do study humans in the digital environment. So I'm not really sure what I should be calling myself. I'm a psychologist by education, but I do actually work at the computer science department. So I guess I'm mining data. I'm a big social data scientist or computational social scientist, and I focus on understanding humans in the new digital environment. And before I will start my presentation, I'll actually ask you for a few things. So first of all, if I speak too fast, I very often get excited about the story that I have here. Please slow me down. Can we have a police here slowing me down? Police Tomoya, will you ask me to slow down? Thank you. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that there's not so many of us here today. So if you guys have any questions, just shoot immediately, right? Like just raise your hand and I'll try to kind of give you voice, let you ask the question. I think it will be much more productive instead of waiting for the end of the presentation. So before I start, I'll actually show you a short 2-minute video here. That is a good introduction to the subject. Doesn't work though.
How long he was driving with that box under his car. I like that he's not home, he told me he
sure if you agree with me, but this is increasingly the reality are we living in, right? It's not only the cell phones, it's also computers, all the digital devices that surround us. Now new Samsung cell phone is kind of connected with your watch, so kind of everything you do is now mediated or accommodated by digital devices. And it has actually it kind of brings two issues to my attention. First one is that it gives us a lot of data to study human beings, right? Everything we do now is being recorded. You send emails, so kind of your communication with other people is recorded, or you kind of talk with them on a cell phone, which is also being recorded and analyzed. Not sure if you know, guys, that your voice conversations, even if they are not recorded, the kind of a voice amplitude would be recorded. So later, GSM network or the scientists can study how your voice changed during the conversation and so on. Right? Pictures, GPS location, everything we do is basically recorded, which brings a lot of new data to psychologists. But there's a second issue, that this also changes our environment, right? Like this girl here, she didn't really look so happy to be surrounded by people who are more of a, like kind of a cyborg, like a combination of a human being and a smartphone rather than human beings, right? So it also changes kind of the environment in which we live in, which is also very interesting from psychological point of view. Is it good for us? Is it bad? I'm kind of always trying to be rather neutral, so I believe it's just the environment we live in. It's neither good nor bad. And if you like it, it's perhaps good, but it definitely affects what's going on, affects our kind of psychological relationships with other people, and so on. So they're kind of two big issues for psychologists. And you can call it big data. I like to call it digital footprint. Basically, those are records of the behavior collected by digital devices. And I have a little slide here showing few kinds of data you can record. You can kind of get access to here. You have smartphones, other connected devices, kind of traditional laptops and tablets. And you can see how many of the areas of the life, how many life areas are now accommodated by online services and then in effect recorded, right? Computers know where you are. Your cell phone kind of tracks you all the time. You look around. Actually, your cell phone tracks much more than your physical location. There's also kind of a very sensitive sensors inside. For instance, accelerometer. So even we can test how quickly you kind of how jumpy you are. Whether you kind of start to walk very quickly or just very calm, right? Which could be a proxy for your mood. But not sure if you know that if you keep your cell phone on your bed or in your pocket when you sit, the sensor is accurate enough to figure out your heartbeat, right? So it can also record and track your heartbeat, your temperature, and many other the kind of biological indicators throughout the day. But there's much more, of course. You take pictures of yourself, so it's not only information about you, but it's also information about everyone around you. So even if you say, oh, I do not use any digital devices myself, I'm out of this game, this is not true. Because you have friends who take a picture of you and tag you on it and put it on Facebook, right? Moreover, you quite likely use a credit card, which is also recording what you buy, when you buy, why you buy, and so on. You have a bus ticket, you come into the subway. I hope you realize that basically Oyster card in London or Passmo card here, the data from it is heavily analyzed, right? You can analyze the patterns of behavior, how early you go and start your day, what time you come back from work, what are the stations you go to, and so on. So my data, the data I work with, usually comes from social networks. And it's not because I kind of particularly like social networks, though actually I think it's a great device, it's a great thing, but it's just simply that I got access to a lot of data from this source. And actually, I perhaps should mention it before I go any further, the data, the results you can see here those are based on the data that we share. My research group shares it with other interested researchers. So if you guys are interested in studying the kinds of things in your study, you are more than welcome to reach out, send us an email. We have a website called mypersonality.org where you can actually see mypersonality.org, which you can actually see what's available. We have data of more than 6 million people. We have their personality scores, IQ scores, happiness scores, morality scores. We have a bunch of psychometric measures applied to them. And we also have the records of their Facebook profiles. So they gave us access to the Facebook profiles. So now we can match this data in an interesting way. Let's say geographical location, happiness, personality, and so on. There's a whole bunch of things that could be studied, and my research team is not large enough to cover everything. Okay, so we have this data, and now the big question is, so what? Like, you have this data, what can you do with it? Actually, one of the questions that I started with is trying to see whether there are any individual differences in digital footprint that make sense, right? So in psychology, how many psychologists do we have in the room? Can the psychologists raise their hands? Psychologists, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, okay. So still minority. I was expecting more psychologists. That's okay. So for instance, in psychology, we distinguish between males and females, between genders. We distinguish, of course, we look at age, we look at IQ, but we also look at personality. And most popular personality model at the moment is so-called Big Five, five factors of personality model, which distinguishes between people who are introverted and extroverted, well-organized and spontaneous, emotional and easily stressed and very stable. And what else? Agreeable, disagreeable, and I guess that's it. There was 5, right? Yeah. And my first research question when I started researching was checking whether those psychological dimensions that we kind of believe guide your behavior in the offline world, whether those the same dimensions will guide your behavior in the online world, whether your digital footprint will be related to your psychological traits. And in fact, it turns out that it is quite related. And I will show you a few examples, and there actually will be a bit of a quiz later on. So one thing we did, we looked at language used on social media, so Facebook status updates. And we analyzed this language in the context of psychological traits. In this case, we looked at happiness. And you can see that happy people, they use words Vegas, summer, practice, but also, I have no idea why. Actually, this is another interesting question I hope maybe one of you guys will be able to address. Happy people, they speak about swimming a lot. From, like there could be some psychological theories built up to explain that, but this is kind of an example of this becoming a very interesting way of studying people and answering all questions, but can also bring you new knowledge, can actually show you some new phenomena that perhaps we didn't notice before. Okay, now there's a quiz for you. So, there's not yet a quiz because I kind of solved it. So those are words that are used by unhappy people. So if you see people using those words, and they use a lot of them, and actually this psychologically makes a lot of sense, right? They have like sad people, they don't look very happy. Okay, this is personality trait, one of the big 5 traits. Can you tell me what kind of people use those words?
Japanese.
Japanese! yeah. But there's also a psychological trait that is kind of, please note that this is based on American sample, right? So the same words can mean different things in different cultures, right? So what is a very specific niche thing in America might be a mainstream kind of culture thing in Japan, for instance, anime. Okay, any guesses? What kind of personality trait it might be? Come on, psychologists. Introverted. Internet, computer, sitting at home alone, don't really interacting so much with other people, kind of introverts, they love internet. Actually, there's an interesting study, I can't remember the reference now, but when the text messaging first showed up, psychologists were like, oh my god, this will completely destroy the social interactions between people. Now they will just message to each other, they will lose social skills and so on. And it was a basically big issue then. But what actually turned out to be the effect of text messaging is that people who are shy and introverted, those who traditionally had big trouble to start psychological kind of meaningful relationships because they're basically too shy to approach the others, text messaging gave them this easy, low-hanging step towards starting social interactions. So I'm too shy I like this girl a lot, but I'm kind of too shy to approach it, I'm an introvert. So I kind of send her a message and she sends me a message back and I can actually start a conversation, a relationship, something that was not available to the kids in the past, not so easily. Right? So actually, this is an example of how internet and internet communication can actually help to bridge relationships rather than split them up. Okay. Psychologist, what kind of personality trait that would be? Love, party, excited, weekend, baby, girls, amazing, chilling, extroverted, of course. Wonderful, family, excited, beautiful, blessed. There must be Jesus somewhere in the church, Thanksgiving. Very kind of positive, social, kind of oriented, agreeable person. High on agreeableness. Next one. Not sure if I can say this word aloud. This is from the published paper, so I hope they don't mind. And those are actual words used by people on status updates. Disagreeable people. Competitive, working alone, disagreeable, very ambitious, and so on. Shopping, husband, birthday, weekend, football. Any ideas? Conservative. Equal high on conservative. Okay, but it's not only psychological traits that you can look at. So this is actually a demographic trait. So what you see here, and what I won't go into it, those are not just simple word count. So it's not that we simply counted words. We actually use quite sophisticated analysis, latent dictionary allocation, to look at topics that people talk about, right? Because the same word can mean two different things in two different contexts. Like jaguar can mean a car, but it can also mean an animal, right? So this method actually allows you to have the same word in two different contexts together. So those are topics, those are group of words used very often by a very specific demographic group. Logic, opinion, moral, political, society. Some swear words here. Games, Xbox, playing online. Country, rights, freedom, government, democracy, liberty, political country. What kind of demographic trait group can you see here? Come on, guys. This is easy. You must have some guesses. I need a guess from you. What demographic group? What do you see here? Imagine a person. Try to, because obviously you all have also psychological intuition in you. What kind of person, if you just see people, person talking about it, but you don't know who they are, who do you think, what would be the person that you see? Students, okay. Male student or a female student? Male student, man or woman? Man, exactly. And then you have males here. And now obviously you have a very big difference in language used by females. Puppy, sweetheart, happy, so loving, so friends, no politics, no swearing, no shit, no logic, completely different, right? And obviously, on average, most of the language we use is not different between genders. We use 90, well, I forgot the actual number, but the great majority of the language is the same between genders. But have you seen a guy saying, oh, I'm so excited? This is not what guys do. And also girls don't really talk about so much about government freedoms and so on, right? And it kind of feeds into stereotypes as well, right? You think about stereotypical husband and wife, husband would be interested in politics, women think politics is not really so exciting, right? So again, I'm not trying to build stereotypes here, but I'm saying that kind of big data, this is based on, I think it was 300,000 people here, kind of shows that there is actually a very nice signal there. And of course, you can go much deeper. So again, those are female-dominated topics, those are male-dominated topics, and you can kind of look at much more in terms of the spectrum of psychological traits. Okay, but it's not only language. And the kind of next thing I looked at was interests. Right? So people are also interested in different things. And I used, as a proxy for interest, I use Facebook likes. Who here is not using Facebook? Can I see people who do not use Facebook? Come on, there must be someone who does not use Facebook. Not even one person? That's a big progress. I actually never seen an audience where everyone is using Facebook. Congratulations, I think Facebook is a great thing to use. So you know what Facebook like is, right? You actually don't even have to log into Facebook. You can just be on the internet. You visit the website that you like, and you can click like button, and this kind of will be saved on your Facebook profile. And now what we can do, we can look at the differences between different personality, different psychological profiles in terms of what they like, what preferences they have. And I'll give you an example here. Two groups on one psychological trait. And on one extreme, you have people who like Mozart and thunderstorms and science and The Godfather, the movie or the book. And they also like Morgan Freeman's voice. You guys know Morgan Freeman? I also actually like his voice, so hopefully I'm there. And on the other side, you have people who like Harley Davidson and some brands that Tomoya said that he doesn't recognize them, which I think actually speaks very good of you. Okay, another example. Writers, Charles Bukowski, Oscar Wilde, Leonardo da Vinci, Plato, versus Teen Mom 2, I Don't Read, NASCAR, which is basically car racing. This will be openness to experience. Open, liberal, progressive, creative people here, conservative, traditional people on this side. Any guesses? This is actually a demographic trend here. Wu-Tang Clan versus No Hate Campaign. People familiar with American culture. Again, this is an American-based sample. Ellen DeGeneres is a very famous lesbian American TV presenter. And in fact, this is a language. Those are preferences, differences between straight and gay individuals. Psychology again. Spontaneous, not well organized, not well planning, join if you're fat. Well, I'm not really very familiar with those objects here, but are kind of basically books and anime again versus law officer, national law enforcement, accounting. Right? You have to be highly conscientious to choose a career in accounting, and so on. I can basically show you quite a few examples, but basically, now the question is, okay, so we see those differences, but as actually Ken said, okay, if you have enough data, you will also see some differences. But now the question is, how meaningful those differences are, right? So, okay, I kind of picked up some signal, how meaningful this signal is, whether kind of it really makes a difference, whether by just looking at the preferences of someone online or checking the language, can computer automatically actually differentiate between male and female, or a person who is open-minded or conservative? And let me actually again use a video here to cheer you up a bit, and this will be an introduction to the next research that I'll present you in a second.
Clicking like on Facebook is something most of us do without thinking.
The University of Cambridge over in London actually did a study
of what people like on Facebook to try to determine facts about them that they wouldn't otherwise know. So they didn't just look at the products, the movies, the bands that people like. They also looked at the status updates that people liked, the photos that people liked. And they were able to draw some really, really interesting conclusions about
all of your likes that you're clicking can tell more about you than you might have realized, from your political values to your religion to your gender to your happiness to your age.
In fact, some parts of your identity can be predicted with 95% accuracy.
Accuracy was lowest, about 60% when it came to predicting whether a user's parents were still together when they were 21. People whose parents divorced before they were 21 tended to like statements about relationships. Drug users were ID'd with about 65% accuracy, smokers with 73%, and drinkers with 70%. Sexual orientation was also easier to distinguish among men, 88% right there. For women, it was about 75%. Gender, by the way, race, religion, and political views were predicted with high accuracy as well. For instance, white versus black, 95%.
The findings of alarmed privacy campaigners fear this research will be used to commercially exploit users.
So keep in mind that just because you think you're not revealing a lot of personal details on Facebook, you're still spreading the word to the outside world as well as those online marketers.
Volunteers with few friends liked walking with your friend and randomly pushing them into someone or something. Hey, it's not their fault they don't have friends. Everyone they know keeps getting randomly pushed into traffic. High IQ corresponds to liking Mozart, science, and the Colbert Report.
Research indicated people who like Harley-Davidson motorbikes are generally of low IQ. We thought we'd better offer a bike to reply.
I'd say our average customer is probably more intelligent than most, which then have a lot of customers who are people from Cambridge University for a start.
A like on Facebook can reveal if you're a gay man. Yeah, especially if what you choose to like is penises. That's my wife walking in. I'm like, oh! That's a joke.
By the way, don't be an idiot and think that if somebody clicked on Wicked the Musical that they're gay automatically, or they clicked on Harley Davidson and it's stupid automatically. Ironically, that would make you stupid.
So yes, this was basically an introduction to one of the research projects that we have done in last 2 years. So what we did, we took 60,000 volunteers from Facebook. We recorded a number of psychological and demographic traits like personality, IQ, but also we checked whether the parents were divorced or not, whether they take drugs, whether they smoke, whether they're gay or straight, and we also recorded the digital footprint. And we chose a very simple digital footprint, Facebook likes. And now Facebook likes are much less intrusive than your usual your usual digital footprint. Right? Facebook likes is something that's public. You click on like and you know that all of your friends will see, right? So actually gay people do not really click on a like, I'm gay. Actually few people do, but we remove that from the sample, this would be too easy, right? So people whose parents were divorced did not click on a like, oh, my parents are divorced. I'm not sure, I've never actually seen a like that. Maybe it exists, but I've never kind of encountered it, right? So it's a very kind of public information, so people kind of self-censor themselves. And I cannot show you the results, but I also looked at web browsing data. So at Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and other big internet companies, they also collect your web browsing data. They look at the websites you're visiting. And here, the accuracy is even higher, because people, when they browse the internet, they do not feel like someone observes them, right? Like, obviously, if you actually sit down and think about it, obviously your internet provider, your government, Google, Microsoft, they all record this data. But like, people feel more intimate, right? So it's even more revealing. But what you will see here is that you can use this very simple kind of signal, Facebook likes, and still be very accurate in predicting. And this is one of the advantages, one of kind of the magic things that is being offered by big data. That very simple methods and very crude, pervasive, generally available piece of data, very accurate and insightful results. So what we did, I won't cover it for too long, but basically we also used quite simple approach. We didn't use very complicated machine learning methods. What we did, we created a matrix where you had users and the things they liked, and we put one in the cells where you had a connection between user and a like. And what we did there, we simply factor analyze it, well, to be honest, we just run a singular value decomposition. So it's like a PCA kind of a procedure that takes the huge matrix where you have many users and hundreds of thousands of likes and kind of flattens it. So we have many users and only few, in this case 100 components. So it's kind of a simplification of this huge matrix. There's many advantages, but I'll skip it. And then what we did, we trained a very simple model. We trained a cross-validated linear regression. It's very difficult to be simpler than that, right? Linear regression is one of the kind of simplest models you can imagine, right? So there cannot be, there's no overfitting, it was cross-validated, very simple method. So actually what I'm saying in here is that the results that you will see in a second are a baseline. That if you use more advanced methods, more intrusive data, perhaps more data, you can only improve on it, right? So it's already pretty accurate, and I believe it can be significantly improved in the future. So to show you some results how accurate we were, let's start with some demographic traits. Accuracy here is measured using area under the curve, which is an equivalent of the probability of being right when you're presented with two people of two different classes. So let's say we have gender. This number, 0.93, indicates that if you show to a computer male and female, men and women, computer in 93% of cases will correctly assign them to a class, right? Obviously, I hope that you see that 50 is a baseline, right? Because if I know nothing and you show me men and women, like randomly I can assign them to classes and I will be correct in 50% of cases, right? So 50% is baseline, 1 is a perfect accuracy, right? If I always classify them correctly, I'm perfectly accurate, this will be 1. And what you can see here is that you have few things that we can predict very accurately. Gender, 0.93, but also race, 0.95, even higher than gender, which actually from a psychological point of view is pretty interesting because it indicates that the differences in behavior between men and women are smaller than differences in behavior between Black American and white American, right? It's actually from the social point of view, it's kind of a big shock, right? Like we have well-known gender differences. It seems that races are even more different. You have religion, Christianity versus Islam, Democrat versus Republican, gay versus straight male, 0.88. Relatively low accuracy was achieved, so kind of close to, much closer to the baseline, and parents together 21. So yes, parents together, no, parents divorced. But actually, when I entered this variable into analysis, I didn't expect to see any results, right? I was thinking like, come on, how on earth divorce of your parents could change your behavior on Facebook while you like stuff enough to actually allow the computer to distinguish between people whose parents are divorced or not, right? It turns out that it does. The kind of divorce of your parents affects you long term, and what you even like on Facebook, music that you listen to, movies that you like, it will affect your preferences. Also, mind you, that this accuracy is also affected by the mistakes in the kind of validation data, in the ground truth, right? Some people, some parents might have divorced at 22, right? For us, this person would be in a non-divorce class, right? Also, some people might have lied about the gender, right? But still, I would say this introduces additional error. You can see quite a lot of accuracy here. We also looked at psychological traits, and what you see here is Pearson correlation coefficient, right? So correlation between the ground truth, actual personality trait, and what was predicted from Facebook likes. And you can see age is pretty easy to predict. You can also predict the properties of the network, so number of friends, and how dense is the network of friendship. Intelligence, 0.4 prediction, but actually when you control for the fact that IQ questionnaires are not perfectly accurate, right? We call it correction for attenuation. So if you disattenuate the results to account for the fact that those personality questionnaires are also not 100% accurate, and you can do it actually using Cronbach alpha. From Cronbach alpha, you know that personality is not accurate, so you can control for it, and you can see that the accuracy is actually pretty high. This is comparable with a short personality questionnaire. So I can either invite you to my office as a psychologist and ask you to fill this questionnaire, or I can just simply say, hey, can you show me your Facebook likes? And I'm kind of achieving very similar prediction accuracy. So I hope that those results show you that those differences that I showed you before between men and women, between different personality traits, are actually pretty meaningful. They allow the computer to very accurately predict those traits, figure out who you are. And now we could go even further and say, okay, so how this compares with human accuracy, right? And actually with Yo-Yo here, Yo-Yo is the first author of this paper, and we recently ran a study in which we're looking at how accurate are computers at predicting your personality based on likes. We use similar methodology to the one I showed you before. Actually, we use lasso regression, which I strongly recommend to you guys. Lasso regression can take hundreds of thousands, millions of variables, very quickly reduce the number. It's very good prediction mechanism, strongly recommended. And what we found is we were able to compare the accuracy of the computer with the accuracy of the human judge. So we first took personality scores of people, so kind of how they self-reported personality, what scores they got when they were filling personality questionnaire. And then we asked different other people to judge personality of those individuals, right? So it's like I'm filling personality questionnaire, and then Tomoya is my friend, and I say, hey Tomoya sensei, can you please fill a personality questionnaire to judge my personality, right? And what you can see here is that the correlation between my own personality score and the personality score judged by my colleague, work colleague, is 0.27. So my real personality versus personality assessed by my work colleague is somewhat correlated, 0.3. If you take a friend or someone who lives with me in one address, this accuracy is even higher, 0.45, 0.44, right? Pretty high. Family member, even higher, right? With family, family members will know you even better than friends, kind of quite obviously spouses, your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, girlfriend, they know you the best. So the correlation of their assessment with my assessment is 0.58. And now what you can do, you can now see how computers, how automated assessment would perform in this context. So what we did, we took we took basically people with different number of likes, right? Because the more likes you have, the more I know about you. right? Because if you only have 2 or 3 likes, I know very little about you. But if you have, like some people have 300, 400, 500 likes, I know more about you, so assessment, presumably, will be more accurate. And in fact, you can see that computer accuracy grows with number of likes available. So if you have only like 10 likes or 2 likes, the correlation between computer assessment and my assessment and my own assessment will point to. If I have 300 likes, it's about 0.6, right? And now let's compare it compare kind of computer assessment and friends and kind of other human being assessment. And you can see this is computer expected accuracy. So basically people on average have around 220 likes. So if you give me an average person from Facebook, computer will be accurate 0.56 across different traits. You can see that it's really close to your wife or husband. Right? Really, there's not much difference. Statistically, I would say it's actually insignificant there. And the thing is that as we collect more data about you, you can see that this line is just growing. Right? Obviously, this is a logistic scale, so it's kind of flattening if you have like a non-logistic scale. But the more information I have about you, the more accurately computer is able to predict your individual trait. Which actually brings us to a kind of a, for me, as a psychologist, I don't want to say kind of life-changing, but it's basically worldview-changing discovery. And I was always convinced that humans, and of course especially psychologists, we are so bloody good at judging other people's personalities. We kind of experts at it, like if we study for years, we have tools, we learn theories, and we also, our brains evolved to study each other's personality. This is kind of, this was crucial for the survival. In the past, when we lived on the savannah and you met another human being, it was crucial for you to quickly assess whether they are friendly or not friendly, whether they are extroverted or introverted, because this could indicate whether they will be a good teammate or maybe they will be a danger. So kind of we naturally evolved to be good at judging other people, and there's a lot of evidence showing that I need only 5 seconds with you or 4 seconds with you to kind of know who you are to a large extent, right? I'm sure you've kind of heard about those papers showing that short impressions are very kind of strong signal for human beings. And now what turns out is that computers, based on a very simple kind of data, are better than human beings. We're kind of approaching thousands of average, and you can see this line just goes forever, right? They're actually better than human beings at judging very human traits. And then again, question, so what? What does it mean? What does it mean for the future of science, of humanity, and so on? And I think that one of the analogies that I particularly like is between what we now observe happens in social sciences, big data social sciences, and what happened to the weather science. I'm sure guys who are familiar with weather forecast, I have it in my cell phone, it's actually increasingly accurate, but people usually do not realize that weather science, studying how fronts move, how cold the air moves from one place to the other, this is very young science. This is only 100, 150 years old. Before that, people believed that science is local, not science, weather is local, right? So you're living in Tokyo, and you're seeing that the sky is red, and you're thinking, oh, when the sky is red, you'll be rain tomorrow, or no rain tomorrow, whatnot, right? And I'm sure you actually know many of those kind of pieces of knowledge, kind of folk knowledge, they're still there. I'm sure your grandparents or parents tell you, oh, if like birds fly, oh, then tomorrow weather will be such and such, right? But we know today that weather is not local. That what we'll see here, whether it rains here today or not, actually depends on the wind patterns, of how the temperatures vary, what are the differences in pressure, whether it's high pressure, low pressure, and whatnot. But people did not realize it for most of our existence. And please note that weather is so crucial for our survival, right? Farming, hunting, so many things depend on the weather. But it was impossible for human beings to understand the weather simply because they did not have big data. The only data they had was from here, now, today. I today see red sky, tomorrow will be raining or not. And actually, modern weather started with a discovery, well, implementational discovery of a telegraph. Farmers in the United States, when they were building a railway network, you know, they had also telegraph along the railway network. So if there was raining in one place, you know, a telegraph guy was sitting there bored, be like, oh, nothing is happening in my city today, but it's raining here today. He would like send it to a person who was 100 kilometers away or 150 kilometers away. And they kind of did notice that if it's raining here, and the wind is from there, it will rain there. And look, this is so obvious for us today, but no one had an idea 150 years ago. Like, they basically had no idea. And then farmers actually were like, because it was important for them to kind of gather crops, farmers realized that this actually is useful, and they started studying it, and boom, you have new science, new understanding, something that is so obvious for us today. That weather actually is a pattern, it's a global pattern. And I think that psychology is today at the stage where weather science was 150 years ago. We know a lot about human beings. We know how we behave, we see people, we see a lot of local patterns. Also, we have a lot of folk knowledge. Like we have a folk knowledge that what people do when they come into kind of a new environment, you know, they see other people. We have a kind of a lot of acquired folk knowledge, what people should be doing, what people usually do. And I'm thinking that big data, both on a macro level, so big social data, but also on the brain level, so big neuroscience data, will bring completely new understanding to how people operate, what drives our behavior, and so on. Basically, it will be the same revolution as happened to the weather 150 years ago. Which covers first point here. But I also think there are many more opportunities at hand, like kind of small wins, low-hanging fruits, and we can get from the methods that are presented today. So, for instance, you can imagine that those methods, this ability of a computer to judge personality and other traits, can be used to cheaply and super fast and quickly run psychological assessment, right? So, I'll give you an example that is very simple yet very powerful. Today, when you want to hire people, when you want to find people for your university, you invite people, hey, send me application, then you invite them to take the test, and then you kind of accept them or reject them. But now imagine if I have Facebook and I have 1 million people, 1.3 million people on Facebook, what I can actually do, I can say, I will now analyze everyone on Facebook. I will select 100 people that I believe actually will match my course. And instead of kind of fishing for people, I can just invite those 100 people and say, hey guys, it would be great for this job. Would you like to come here? Or would be great for this university, for this course. Would you would you like to come here? So kind of job matching, university course matching, maybe dating matching would be greatly improved by computers being able to automatically run the assessment. And obviously, we get a lot of interest, so kind of a lot of marketing companies contacted us because they believe, and actually I agree with that by being able to very quickly and automatically understand human beings, understand their kind of psychological profile, you can also improve your marketing targeting and marketing communication. You can improve your messages, improve the products you're offering to people. But obviously there are also risks associated with this technology, and I'm sure, well, I hope at least that some of the results we showed you here were a bit scary. So for instance, for me, one of the foundations of the liberal democratic society is that I can share with you the data about my sexual orientation. I can tell you whether I'm gay or straight, or I can tell you what's my political views, or I can tell you whether I'm a Catholic or I'm atheist, if I want to, but if I don't want to, I don't have to tell you. And I think this is very important for our security and for our freedom, that we have this right to withdraw the information. But what happens here is that looking at those results, you cannot any longer withdraw this information from the others, right? All of your Facebook friends can use a very simple online software to scan your Facebook likes, for instance, or Facebook status update or your email that you exchange with them, and this software will tell them with very high accuracy, oh, Tomoya is a liberal person, or is a conservative person, right? So something that before was your private information and was protected by law, I'm not sure about Japan, but let's say in Europe, information about your sexual orientation, about your IQ, about your health, about your political views, it's highly protected by law. You cannot record it without my permission, and you have to destroy it after some time, and you have to store it in a secure place, and so on. But now what happens, and actually what it is the case now, and this is not my opinion, it's an opinion of European Parliament, internet is illegal in Europe now. According to the law, you cannot have a system running that reveals your IQ to anyone who would like to see, or your sexual orientation to anyone who would like to see. So obviously, Europe is not switching the internet off, but believe me, there's a lot of kind of thinking going on in European Commission, European Parliament, what to do with this problem, right? We believe it's important to protect information of individuals, but now we have this amazing thing, internet, that kind of goes against it. One more thing is creepy assessment, right? So I said it's possible to assess people at a large scale, but many of us would not like to be assessed, right? And then if someone, if I know that someone scans my Facebook profile to just check out my IQ, for instance, I might feel uneasy. So I think there's a lot of space for research to understand what people would accept or not, and also for policy making, for good policy making, to protect the people from companies, evil or good companies doing stuff that we don't want. Overall, I personally actually believe that this technology is like any other technology. So big social data is a bit like a knife. You can use knife to kill people, but you can also use knife to cut meat and prepare food and so on. So it can be applied both for good and for bad. And to give you an example, of course, we could have a separate presentation for this bit, but I'll give you an example. People, in my opinion, people love to be assessed. They love to share the data as long as they feel control over it. So the sample of 6 million people that I told you about, those were volunteers. They donated data to me, and they said, please use it, right? Because I gave them choice. I said, you can participate in my research, you can get the results, but you can also help me by donating the data. And people were very happy, and even when we published those results, I got a lot of emails saying, oh, this is an amazing result, and I got no emails saying, this is really creepy. But actually, when you think about this, it's pretty creepy, the kind of results I was showing you. But because we gave people choice, they didn't mind. And I believe the same relates to assessment. If you, let's say, people let them choose, say, I want to participate in this system, I want to be automatically assessed, people will love it. If you just do it without asking, people will hate it. And both in science, participants might be angry at you, and in corporate world or government world, that you can actually spook out it. So this is what I prepared for you today, and there were no questions during the presentation, but I hope you have some questions now.
For the last part, you talked about risk, and some of your study recruited more than 60,000 participants. I don't remember exactly, but the Daily Mail news article seems very negative about your research. Could you tell me how do you recruit the volunteers for your study?
Okay, so that's a very good question. Thank you for that. So what we did, it was all started by my friend and collaborator, Dr. David Stilwell. When he finished his undergraduate course and was just going to do his master's, he had holidays where he didn't plan anything. And he's an introvert, so he likes sitting at home. So what he did, and he just finished his undergraduate degree in psychology, so he took an open source personality test, IPAP 100 proxy from EOPAR. He took this personality test and he put it online. And it was just the time, it was like 2006, 2007, 2006, when Facebook opened like so-called application API. So everyone could publish a application on Facebook. So he decided to publish personality questionnaire. And he imagined that maybe 100 people will take it, maybe 200 people will take it. He sent it to his friends, he didn't use any marketing, he just put it on Facebook. And it turned out that there were up to 1 million people a month coming to the application, taking the test. It didn't look great. It's actually now switched off. It didn't look great. It was just, a psychology student made application. So you can imagine it was like pretty simple. And then we started adding additional tests, IQ, happiness. We had, I think, in total 40 different questionnaires, and people just loved it. So they kind of come, take the test. They could post the results on their Facebook newsfeed, Facebook wall. So then other people say, oh, this is interesting, I also want to take the test. And in this way, it's kind of, I guess in psychology it's called snowball approach. In this way, we kind of snowballed, I think a total sample of 8 million people. 8 million people agreed for us to use their data. And actually, the more people took the question. Interesting thing, I don't think it will be possible anymore to copy exactly this solution, simply because there is novelty factor involved, right? So the first thing usually takes off, all the copies are kind of not so popular because people already took their questionnaire, those that were interested. Moreover, now Facebook is much more commercial. At the beginning, Facebook wanted apps to be there. Maybe you remember like Mafia Wars, you had a lot of this kind of spam on your wall. One of the spam was our study. Nowadays, you have to pay like $1 to actually for your study to be shown on people's walls.
Do you change your strategy recently? For the first, it was kind of accidental, but now it's more that Facebook is more protected, right?
Yes, we try to find new ways of making it interesting. And actually, if I have internet here, I don't. So what you can check yourself, there's a website called youarewhatyoulike.com. So when we presented this study, people were very interested. They were like, oh, I'm wondering what will be my personality based on my likes. So we created this website where you can come, you can click, I want to assess my personality, and the website will look at your likes and give you a personality profile. And again, you can donate these likes to research. So we do not really have a personality questionnaire there, but we get a lot of profiling information. So you can find new viral ways of collecting the data. And you'll be surprised because I have a traditional psychological education, so my first study was based on 20 people that I collected in a month, and just spend a lot of time collecting variable data. And I think that to create a study like that, online study, you have to put a bit more work. You have to kind of design something on the computer, it requires a bit more work, but the return is insane. And because at the end of the day, to create an online questionnaire versus offline questionnaire is just maybe 2 times more expensive. But the sample size and amount of data we'll get back is not 2 times more, it's million times more, right? So I think it's really worth it. I would encourage all of you guys to go and do study, at least collect the data online. And there's one more important thing here. I'm not sure how many of you guys are students, but believe me, majority of psychologists and social scientists, they know nothing about programming, they know nothing about computational methods and so on, right? So if you also know nothing about programming and computational methods, you have to compete with all of those other people. But if you actually learn, and it's not so difficult, I'm not a computer scientist, if you actually learn that, and again, it's not so difficult at the end of the day, you have super competitive advantage. It's much more easy to find jobs, it's much more easy to run interesting studies, because you don't have to compete with all those other people doing studies in your area. You kind of have a new area that you created for yourself.
Any question? Any other questions? Thank you for the great presentation. And I'm interested in the change of the psychological traits. So I feel your research is selective or definitive of the psychological traits. So make just like time series analysis or if you have an idea about that.
Thank you for this question. It's really good, and well, I'm surprised that you came up with this idea so quickly. It took me some time to arrive at this simple and elegant solution, and actually, I'm currently working on basically very similar analysis over time. So you can see how traits are being expressed in different time across in different way across time. But I think actually there's even more important issue that we can try to explore using big social data, which namely, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar how Big Five personality was first developed. So the underlying idea behind Big Five personality is actually pretty elegant. And this idea is as following. If there are some important individual differences between people, like if people differ in an important way, psychologists that kind of developed this personality system framework, they said if there are those differences, they will be expressed in language, right? Because over millennia, if people realized, oh, it's important that some people are nice and some people are not nice, that they will basically have words describing it. So what they did linguistic analysis. So they collected all the adjectives describing people, and then they ran a number of factor analysis. So let's say they took a person and said, hey, you have a list of adjectives. Can you describe your friend? And you were describing your friend using those adjectives, and then scientists were looking and seeing, open-minded goes creative, and it also goes together with liberal. So those usually come together, right? And then they ran a factor analysis, and they said, all those adjectives, they actually describe one trait, open-mindedness, right? And they call it open-mindedness. And now the thing is that very similar elegant idea can be applied to big social data, right? In the past, we said important individual differences would be expressed in language. Now what I'm saying is that important individual differences will be expressed in your behavior that now we can record on the human scale. So what I can do actually, this is kind of my, I can't say that I know the details how I'm going to do it, but kind of this is what I'm working towards, is trying to redevelop personality model, IQ model, and other kind of psychological dimensions, looking at big data only. So I say, okay, I showed already this is related to personality. But now let's just look only at the behavior, and now look at dimensions behind it, and say, hey, maybe this will be a better description of who we are and how we differ from each other.
Well, I think you may have a lot of other questions, but the time comes. I just want to add one thing. He recommended a raster regression, and I believe that raster regression can be both easier understanding Bayesian sense. So I would also recommend using raster regression and use the Bayesian interpretation. By the way, let us give a big hand to Michal. Thank you very much.